so I'm going to get into the new stuff before I get into the demo here. So AIRA, the new stuff is called AIRA, this set of gear here. And Roland is using something called analog circuit behavior. And AIRA is a new line of products that eliminates the barrier between production and live performance. These products are very easy to use, so a lot of people are starting to incorporate them into their live performances. They're built on something called ACB technology. So ACB is basically electronic musical instruments in the analog age, consist of very analog components, transistors, resistors, capacitors, and everything. These components are basically, each component in like an 808 or a 303 is modeled inside of this gear. So it has very, very musical characteristics, just like the originals. So basically, ACB is drastically different from conventional modeling. It models each individual component and sort of creates this instrument from all of the components, transistors, resistors, everything. So the original engineers of some of the, like the original products, some of them are still working for Roland in Japan. And some of them actually had a hand in designing some of this gear. So anyway, why not sample? Modeling is quite a bit of a deeper process, and you get much more of a musical feel from the gear. So let's start with the TR8. So the TR8 represents the TR808 and the 909. These two sort of oldie but goodies. They're quite expensive. Like to find like a pristine 808, I think it's probably about $4,000. And again, because it's old technology, like the 808 was 1982, so that's like 30 years ago, right? So some of the stuff is a little fragile, so you don't want to use it live maybe. So basically those two units are represented by this TR8. And the TR8's full reproduction, 808, 909, using ACB technology. It allows part-by-part analysis faithful to the tone of the originals. And it's a seamless switching between step input and playing the pads. It's really easy to create real-time rhythms, which I'll show in a minute here. And it's got a 16-step sequencer. So this is that TR record thing that I'll show, and it's very, very easy to wrap your head around. So anyway, the TR record mode works like this. Basically, in the top corner here, we press TR rec, and then we can go and pick different instruments. So if I want to pick like a kick drum, and I guess the most popular thing is a 4-on-the-floor kick for techno. We can just really easily just put in four things like that. So basically when you're TR recording, very interesting to kind of wrap your head around the pattern for the drums. If I want to change sounds, basically we can go to either like a drum kit. That's a 909 sound. I can even go into instrument mode. And again, if we had the 707 and 72 sounds, you'd see more kind of instruments in here. But this is an 808 kick. That's a 909 kick. I'm going to stick with the 808 for now. On this channel, which is the kick channel, we have different controls like volume for the kick. We also have like compression settings. So if you really want the kick to kind of pop out, you can kind of edit the compression settings. We have tuning. Gets super low, like if I don't know if there's a sub here, but when you like tune it down, it's like the most severe sort of sub bass you can possibly imagine. There's the attack, so if you want to muffle it up a bit, or decay, right? And then also with the instrument, there's a longer decay kick, right, for hip hop maybe or something like that, right? I'm going to switch it to the other one for this example, and we'll sort of tune down the decay. And then you can just easily go in and sort of edit the volume of each instrument. And also, you can pick, let's say, a snare sound. And again, maybe snare is on 5 and 13. But there's no rules, right? You can kind of easily create any pattern that you want. If you want a real-time record, we can also go into, let me clear this, we can also go into instrument record. And on the bottom, we see here, there's a kick, snare, low tom, mid tom, high tom. You can also do things like, that's if I want to real-time record that. And that's kind of a fun feature to really quickly do stuff live as well. We go back into TR record mode and we see everything sort of separated. Low toms. I should have cleared this first, but maybe add some low tom sounds. You can tune your toms, maybe turn down the decay of the snare a bit. Mid tom. And high tom. Kind of go in here. So these are all sounds of the original TR-8. We have hand clap, yay. Some cymbal sounds, open hi-hat, closed hi-hat. We even have like shuffle. So that's shuffle all the way right or left or whatever, which is kind of good for when you're doing hip hop. If I want to affect the tempo right now, because I have the MX1 as the master, we can slow it down to like hip hop speed, right? So maybe for hip hop, we can go in and really change the kit. So it's really, really easy to kind of wrap your head around creating a rhythm. Of course, all the tempos, like techno is usually 120 beats per minute, hip hop maybe like 90 to 100. Once you have a beat going in the TR-8, there's some interesting things you can do. If I want to pick the snare sound, we can actually step in effects. So we can step in effects like reverb. So I'll do reverb on 5. So the reverb's only affecting that 5th step, as you can see it here. We can gate it. We can let it ride out. You can also do things like change the type of reverb. So now, apart from reverb, you can also go in and add different types of delay. So maybe I'll just turn down the reverb for this. So again, we go to instrument mode. Maybe I want the delay to be a quicker delay or reverse. That's kind of cool. We have accents. So if I want the kick to have a bigger accent on the 1, you guys can hear that? Maybe we want to add decay. You okay? The camera's okay? Yeah, that was a good save. So that's the accent amount. So basically, you can turn the accent up or down. Add it to whatever step you want in the chain. And there's 32 steps actually. So this is the 2nd step. So you can change this. If we want to run both together, we can just press them both at the same time, and then it runs one to the other. If I want to change this, I can store all this as patterns too. So we can just chain patterns. So it's really a powerful live tool as well. There we go. We'll just hit pattern A. And we'll go back and we'll change this. We'll change it to techno. There we go. We'll speed up the volume, or speed up the tempo a bit here. And I'm going to unaccent that one kick, so I don't really want that to... okay, so... get the delay going, the reverb a bit here. There's also this area up top here on the right called scatter. And what scatter does is it's kind of like a glitch style of effect. So you kind of use it to sort of disrupt the beat. And the depth knob adds the depth of the effect. So just some interesting things. There's basically 10 different scatter styles, and then you could have 10 different depths of each style. So a lot of different variations. The external in's not hooked up right now, but the external in is fantastic because it's a really good way for gating external synth sounds, and I'll go through that in a minute on the MX1. But you can just run a synthesizer into here. You can also use the TR8 as a sound card and have Ableton Live coming out of this, and then it'll gate the Ableton Live settings if you want, or mixes. It's a pretty powerful feature. Some other interesting features are things like, we have last step. So if you want to do anything, like you want to change it to be an odd number, like, or we can just make it 16 steps or 10 steps or whatever. And that's kind of an interesting thing, having one, if you have two drum machines or like Ableton Live, having a drum sound, having this be the odd number and then letting this catch up to the even number, and you can do some really interesting sort of rhythmic things. What else? Scale basically sets the scale of the sequence, so you can have it kind of like 2/4 scale, 3/4 scale. Sort of the typical one would be this, the middle scale. And then we have instrument play mode, which is kind of fun. So you can do things like, if you want to mute different instruments on the fly, you can do that. We can add variations. We can do things, variation kick. Oh, sorry, I'm in mute here. So it's just varying what the snare sound's doing. If you want to do a roll or an eighth note roll. But again, the interface is made to be super tactile, so it's really easy to kind of work your way around, influencing the volume of the sounds or the effects of the sounds. And that's, very easy to use. There's not, every knob and fader sort of edits one sort of parameter of the drum machine, so there's not a lot. You don't have to really read the manual. You can kind of get it out and start playing with it immediately, and it's super, super easy to use and great to use kind of on the fly in a live situation. The System 1's kind of an interesting synth, so it's called a plug-out synthesizer, and what I mean by plug-out is that you can USB into your computer, your DAW setup, and there's a few different plug-outs right now. And basically you can take they show up as VST synths. So we'll go through this a little bit later, but you can basically take those synths and plug them out into this and then take it live and use it without the computer. So we have an SH-101, for instance. This guy, very famous keyboard used in Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics. It's actually one of my favorite synths. I have two of them, and I have a red and a gray one. I'd love to get a blue one, but they're harder to find. Great little sequencer on board, great arpeggiator, just a simple monophonic lead synth. And there's a plug out for this for the System 1, and you can take the SH-101 sounds and just kind of plug it into the unit and use this live then. Another one is we have a SH2, and SH2 is another sort of ancient Roland synthesizer from, I'm not sure what year, maybe 79 or 80 or something like that, and it's a great sort of bass synth. And these can be plugged into the System 1 to change the sound. So basically it's kind of an interesting technology. It's a plug-out host, and it's also a controller with or without a computer for those synthesizers. It uses ACB just like the TR8. It has 4 oscillators, modulation functions, cross modulation between the different oscillators, tempo sync, LFO and delay sync with the DAW or whatever. Some technical data. It's got a really cool arpeggiator built into it with this scatter feature, which I'll kind of show in a second here. So again, just like you can take your plugin, like VST plugin, and plug it out into the synthesizer. And there's, Roland's going to be releasing more of these plugouts in the future. There's the ProMars, which I have here, which is out now and then coming soon. So every few months, you'll see kind of new plugouts that you can, again, take and plug into the System 1. which is pretty interesting. So going through the system one, it comes with these are just system. So it's good for bass sounds, good for lead sounds. I like it personally for kind of the real plucky sort of lead type sounds, but again, it depends on if it's just the system one sounds I'm using or a certain plug out. SH2 for me is fantastic for bass sounds. SH101 I think is more of a leady kind of high sound. So just to go through, as far as the synth goes, you have two oscillator sections at the top here. There's a mixer mode, so if you turn down everything in the mixer mode, we hear nothing. We have oscillator 1. We can choose between everything from square wave, sine wave to stacked squares. This is your stacked sawtooth. We can blend in a second oscillator. And this is basically the pitch between the different oscillators. A sub oscillator. And then noise. You know, if you just want it for drum sounds, that sort of thing. It's interesting, both of the oscillators can kind of cross, modulate into each other. There's an LFO section over here, so if we want, we can pick something like a sine wave and then have the sine wave edit the pitch. Or the amp section. Filter section's fairly powerful. This here. So right now I'm using the LFO to modulate the amplitude section. And that's fade in time. Turn that down and maybe just have it modulate like the pitch. Turn down the noise a bit here. So again, just a pretty advanced and sophisticated synthesizer on its own right, and then you can load these different plug outs into it and get all sorts of different sounds. So I'm just going to pick, let's say, this sound, and I'm going to start, we'll just bring that up by itself. So basically I'm giving this tempo, and we'll turn off all the effects here. On the MX1 mixer. There's tempo, so if we do things like there's a bit crusher. Walk it down a bit here. Now this is, the arpeggiator is quite sophisticated. And using it with scatter, you can get some really interesting sounds. Also, just to show portamento. We'll go in now, and I'll just choose the different arpeggiator settings. So we have like quarter note. So if we have a drum beat going, I'll just put a kick. And you know what? I'm going to just give it a... So you can tell that's a quarter note, right? Eighth note. And I just have it held, so it's really easy to use in a live setting like this. 16th note, but you can also do triplets. And then you have different settings like up, down, 2 octave, just down. kind of like the 2-octave thing. But the scatter effect does some interesting stuff. So you can go in and pick, again, like the TR8, it's got 10 different scatter sort of categories, and then you can edit the depth of each. So maybe pick another one here. And I can hold that just by hitting the hold button. We can go and bring up some effects on the MX1 to sort of gate it. Now that's the type of thing you can do with the external in on the TR8. So you can also do that just with the drum machine if I routed it in the drum machine. We can just turn off the key hold for now, but it's a very, very powerful synth, and you can get a lot of really great sounds in the synth itself, and then you can use these plug outs and download them into them. And I'll show it in a second because I have to switch kind of USB cables here. Okay, we'll go through. The VT3 is not here, but the VT3 is kind of an interesting instrument, and I think Mitch is just waiting for one or whatever. We're on back order right now. It's called the vocal transformer, and this is kind of this is the original, the VT1. This is, again, it's one of those weird sort of effecty kind of things that never really became that popular, and a lot of guys picked this up on the used market. But a lot later, this is in the 90s, and there's a lot of sort of techno producers that, there's one sound in particular in the VT1, and it's this kind of like ghosty, gravelly, pitch shifty sound. It's kind of hard to explain, but it became really popular for that particular sound, and a lot of people were using it live because, again, it's just simple, really, really simple to use live. This is what the VT3 looks like, and it does everything from like vocoding, so if you want like the Daft Punk type of sound, to like sort of robot Kraftwerk sounds, to auto pitch, so like a Kanye West kind of auto pitchy thing, or like a synth. You can actually use your voice to trigger a synthesizer. So it's kind of like good for maybe drum and bass if you're into that kind of music, and just triggering like a deep sort of bass sound. To me, the lead sound sounds like a theremin. Do you guys know what a theremin is? So you can have your voice trigger a theremin. And it has stuff like megaphone, radio, and this cool scatter effect. And you could do things like edit the pitch and the formant. So formant, if you edit the pitch up and turn the formant up, you'd sound like a female. And if you edit the formant down and the pitch down, you sound like Barry White, basically. So pretty interesting effect unit. You can also, with the latest update, USB this up to a computer and play in MIDI notes, and sing into it, and it'll make your voice sing perfect pitch on the MIDI notes. So if you're a poor singer like me, you can actually kind of MIDI, sort of midify your voice and basically use it to sing like a perfect pitch and step it up or down. Almost like, kind of like auto-tune, but using MIDI to trigger the pitch. More like Melodyne, yeah, exactly. There's a mode in Melodyne exactly like that. More like live mode, yeah. But it's still, it's pretty fun. Something like that too. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, we don't have one here to show today, but VT3. Also in Japan, I don't know if do you guys know otaku culture in Japan? Like sort of the video game, I don't know, very hard to explain, but a lot of people, do you guys know who Hatsune Miku is, or Miku Hatsune? She's a cartoon that's like a really famous pop star in Japan. Have you ever heard of Vocaloid? Yeah. Okay, so VT3 is kind of like, you can use it as a Vocaloid thing. A lot of men in Japan create music where they want a female vocalist in the music, and they would use that like sort of something like the VT3 to kind of create that style of pop music. Super poppy, like sort of J-pop sort of stuff. Okay, so you can do a lot of interesting things. It's got a great reverb sound in it as well. It's also an audio interface. It's got something called loopback mode. So if it's USB into your computer, you can just kind of loop back and it'll record what's going into the VT3 back into your DAW, Ableton Live, whatever you're using. So, okay, the next thing is the TB3. So like I had mentioned before, this is kind of an emulation of the legendary TB303. Do you guys know what TB303s are going for now? They're like super expensive. There's only 10,000 made originally, right? So I don't know, maybe like $5,000 or something. I'm not sure. Yeah. Oh, really? Okay, maybe dropped a little bit. Yeah, but they're pretty pricey, and it's just a little tiny plastic battery-powered analog mono synth. But it was really popular. Like again, the sort of the way to record, like it's almost like TR-Rec, but this is using pitch. And I'll show the TB3 in a second, but yeah, sort of a legendary machine for acid. So TB3 uses this ACB technology as well. Fully reproduce the original sounds of the TB303. It's got this cool, and you guys can come up after. It's got like a, what channel am I on? Let's press stop for a sec. It's got this cool sort of LED sort of touchpad thing that's a keyboard. Oh, I have beat effects going. Let's go to the very first patch here. That's what original 303 sounded like, right? It's got lots of different sounds. So the sounds, I'll go back to it here. The sounds in here, basically, it's got 4 banks, and bank A is your original 303 sounds. Bank B is bass sounds, C is lead sounds, and the last bank D is kind of like special effect sounds. So it is. Turn it up a bit. This is a sound of original stock TB303. Now remember what I said, the 303 is meant to be a live bass thing. Does this sound like a bass player? Maybe not, right? Pretty sort of robotic, right? Now to go in and edit the different sounds, I'll just go through some sounds first. As we move up in the patches, that's a Devilfish modded 303. So there's these famous mods that people do on the original analog circuitry that make them sort of really growly. It also sounds great with distortion on it. Let me pick a different pattern here. That's that 303 sound, kind of a real acid sound. Let's bring up the... That's kind of like the sound of acid, basically those two sort of machines. Or maybe switching to like a 909. Like that sort of sound. Okay, I'll bring that down for a sec. So basically you have all these different types of sounds. Bank B is bass sounds. And then C would be kind of these synth, more lead sounds. Then there's these crazy special effect-y, weird type of sounds. I'll get back to the 303 sounds. That's a good sound to start with. Okay, so how this works basically is you have synth controls at the top, filter control, cutoff, and resonance, which were kind of what the 303 was famous for. Like that sort of thing. We have an accent mode, so you can accent certain steps in the sequence, just like the TR8. We have an effects section, so... Hey Jeff, how's it going? So effects would add, depending upon the patch, you can add things like reverb or chorus or distortion or delay. There's a scatter. kind of like the other instruments where you can go in and sort of scatter different things. There's an envelope mod parameter to affect the sound in different ways. Then things like XY pad to play in the sound. You can select different patterns on the fly. If you're using it live, you can kind of go through a performance like that. We'll go back to this one here. Now you can change the key of the pattern just by holding down the key button. We'll go back to C. You can also do things like change the amount of steps. So it's kind of a powerful little sequencer too. Like if we want, we can go back to get out of step mode. We'll select a different pattern. Select pattern number 1. You can actually go in real time record. So it'll automatically sort of quantize everything for you. If we want to octave up or down, we hit the octave button. Like that. We can also step record. So if I want to clear everything, I can just clear all the steps like that. There's accents and slides that you can add to different sounds. So we'll octave down. We'll do that on step 1, and then we can octave up and slide maybe to the next sound. So it kind of slides into it. We can move up to like step 6 and 7. So that's how you can program. It's very, very easy to get in program. You can also do things like if you want to randomize this, just pattern and scatter at the same time. Until you find something that you like or maybe don't like or whatever. You kind of keep doing it. And again, everything's synced to the TR8 and the MX1 right now. So that's kind of the TB3 in a nutshell. It's just a really, really quick and easy to get around little keyboard sequencer. It's great to use actually even with something like the SPX1 here, which you can MIDI out from the TB3 into the SPX1 and then CV and gate out to like a modular synth if you have a modular setup. So a really, really powerful little setup. Before I get in, actually we'll get into the MX1 now. So the MX1 is basically like everything I showed you. It's these are all kind of performance style instruments. The MX1 is a performance style mixer. So if we bring up, there we go here. Actually, maybe have to get into Ableton Live. But what the MX1 is an 18-channel performance mixer, and it has step sequence effects as well as like a transport that you can use to sync to everything. And then it's got a really sophisticated different effect sections that you can use with anything plugged into it, as well as all the AIRA gear. All the AIRA gear right now is plugged into the mixer via USB. So it's using something called AIRA Link, which is a pretty powerful feature. And what AIRA Link allows you to do is basically, it's just, you don't have to bring audio cables, you just bring USB cables. And you can plug 4 inputs into the mixer with USB, and that sends everything from clock to MIDI data, to audio data, basically. So the TR8, for instance, is going into this mixer. Just let me create a little bit of a beat here. Just via USB. Same with the TB3. This is all just going into this mixer via USB, which is fantastic. Any questions about any of the stuff I was just going through, by the way? Whilst I load a little session here. Anybody? No? No questions? Yes? So the MX1, does that have a digital output as well? So you can it has a digital in out, but remember it's just going USB into the computer right now, and it's actually an 18-channel audio interface. So it doesn't look like 18 channels, but it has basically 8 inputs. And then all of the AIRA stuff, like remember the TR8 is actually a 10-channel audio interface too. So USB from the TR8 into the MX1, you can use all of those channels. So if you're recording with the TR8, kick, snare, hi-hat, all that stuff can be on a separate channel as well going into something like live. So it's a pretty interesting thing. And just for the performance, like right now, I'm just using this to control Ableton basically as a clock. And then all of these instruments are going into it. And let me just set up something here real quick. All of these instruments are going into the MX1 mixer, but there's also an external mix mode that you can use on the MX1. And to get to it, you basically turn on the power while holding the gain thing, and you turn a knob to external mode. And basically that'll allow you to use all the faders to control all the faders in Ableton. And there's also, maybe it's not public yet, but there's going to be a new update coming that'll allow you to launch clips with this as well. So it's going to be sort of, it supports Ableton Live fairly well, basically. So anyway, right now, we have a sort of a session up in live. And again, everything's synced to the MX1. So if I want to bring up the tempo, slow it back down, this would be 125, I think, right? It's the PC channel on the MX1 mixer. So we can do things like mute it if I want to. The TR8's automatically synced to what's going on in live right now. This is an interesting mixer because, like I said, it has all these interesting sort of performance style of effects on it. So things like built-in filters per channel. For DJing, things like master effects. So if we want to add, or like a scatter, like I showed on some of the other products. And there's many types of scatter. If I hold down the scatter button, there'll be like 8 different types of scatter built into it. If I hold down the roll button, there's a few different types of roll. You know, all sorts of different sort of styles of effects. You know, we have things like filters, bit crusher, and again, to get to different bit crusher settings. Go back to number 1, delay. Here you can set the time, so if you wanted a quarter note or 8th note or 16th note or whatever, you can kind of go in and edit it here. If you want to do like triplets or something, you can do that. And then there's an interesting combi mode. So if I hit combi, you can do a combination of all of the effects at once. So, and again, by holding the combi button, 20 different combinations, and you can pre-program your own or create your own. Try a different one here. And that's just turning on the M effects mode on each channel. So besides that, when we select a track, we can also select something called beat effects. So what beat effects is it's a step sequence style of effector, similar, and it's similar to TR record mode, basically the same as the TR8 that I showed everybody earlier. And what this allows you to do is pick something like, if you want to side chain something into here, there's just the regular song, maybe we want a side chain. Or you want to use it as a slicer, so it only plays certain slices of the music. Like that. Or a filter. And these have different parameters as well, so we can, if we want to side chain it, it affects how much of it is chained in the signal. We can add that, or maybe slicer. This is basically a release of the slice. You can do all sorts of interesting things. So it becomes kind of a real performance style mixer, and then you can add in the other pieces of AIRA gear. So if we want to bring in something like and that's basically what the MX1 would be used for, just kind of like a live sort of performance tool. Turn that off for a second here. But it allows you to kind of really get in there and sort of perform with the mixer. You can use it just as a straight sort of DJ tool, or if you want to incorporate some of the other instruments into it, it's really easy to use that way as well. Yes? Yep.
How easy is it to switch over into like from using all the faders as fades for the hardware to using it?
Ableton Live mode. Basically what you do is, I'm going to stop it, and I have to turn it off so it may lose connection, but you, do you mind if I show you? Take a second to show you? Yeah? Yeah, you turn it off, and then when you turn it on, you hold down gain, and then it's in tone mode, I believe. Yeah, tone mode, and then you can switch it to external. It's EHT. Can you even see that from back there? But that turns it on to like an Ableton mode, basically. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then you basically, you hit the start stop button. That sort of sets it in Ableton Live control mode. And you can use everything the same in that mode, except you have to run everything as an input into Live then. So the TR8 would be on live. The USB 1, 2, 3, 4 on the mixer would correspond to, I think it's Ableton 9 and 10 is 1, 11 and 12 is 2, 13 and 4, et cetera, right? So those would control like all of the instruments plugged into AIRA Link, and then you have some channels that you can control on Ableton that way.
Like navigate left and right to reach other channels that are
Yeah, like that's like a shift sort of menu thing as well. So you could do that, as well as the new, when they come out with the new update or whatever for launching clips, it's off the top of my head, I can't remember, but it's like a shift something, and then this will be your clip launching sort of menu, like so it's pretty, like it'll, I think there'll be some next updates and everything, but it's a pretty powerful tool for just kind of experimenting with live and using it as that sort of setup. Yeah.
So you can use all its functionality and sequencing ability on your Ableton tracks and DSPs and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Now, while I'm on the topic, you had a question?
We can come back to that.
Sure.
In terms of the USB plug,
Yeah.
can you use them with any other
No, not at the moment. So it's only for AIRA Link, it's called. So I know that would be the killer, right? Then you can plug in anything into it. Yeah. Yeah. For that, you'd still have to just use another USB input on your computer. But I don't know. That may be difficult to do. But
they were talking about releasing that data stream to other developers.
yeah, I think we have, but it's just sometimes it takes a while to get onto that sort of thing. So yeah, there's also been maybe talk about plug outs for other, like that sort of thing. So, give it time. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so I don't know if you guys want to, let me stop this for a second. Maybe what I can do is just kind of finish off the presentation, and then we can go and we can just finish off. If you guys want to come up and just sort of experiment with the stuff, that would be fine. Just wanted to mention too that we're releasing some modular gear. So does anybody own any modular stuff? Jeff, do you have any modular stuff? No? Yeah, what kind of stuff do you have?
Mostly self-built.
Oh yeah, cool.
Modules.
Yeah. Well, it's I actually got some of these like a couple weeks ago. It's been a whirlwind trip for me. Like I was in Montreal for MUTEC, and then went basically straight to Japan after that. And I was in Vancouver for a day or two the last couple of days, and then I came here. But I had the System 1M and some of the effector modules, and I couldn't bring them. But what we're getting into is basically like I think this kind of demographic is becoming more and more popular, and it's sort of the more experimental side of things. So the System 1M has got a lot of like CV and gate inputs and outputs that allow you to sort of patch into your modular gear. Use something like the XBX1 that's up here to sort of patch into that sort of thing, and it's meant for kind of more experimental sort of self-generating sort of stuff. The AIRA effects are really interesting. There's a bit crusher one, a delay, a distortion, one called a scooper, and the scooper is like kind of like in between scatter and like a looper, so you can send clock into it and then sort of do like a cool sort of looping sort of thing. These all work with like the System 1 and all the effector work with this AIRA link as well, so you could just USB into the MX1 mixer if you want. The effectors, these are pretty interesting because they're hardware units, but through like an iOS app or through like a phone app, basically you can get in and sort of edit the sub-modules of each one of these. So if you want to go in and switch the LFO and the filter type and the ADSR type internally of the module, you can kind of go in there and sort of change the way how it sort of reacts with everything, change the way it's patched internally. And as you can see, we're coming out with like a huge sort of variety of modules in the future. Some people might have seen the System 500M stuff, which was hinted at Mesa, and these are sort of recreations of some famous modular synths that Roland made in the late 70s. Roland was the only Japanese company really to make modular synths, and this is a picture of Hans Zimmer's System 100 setup. So do you guys know who Hans Zimmer is? Very famous film composer. He's got what's that? Gladiator, Chappie recently, Interstellar. He's got the biggest System 100 modular setup maybe in the world. And it's crazy. This is a picture of his studio. It's just beautiful. So that in the background is all Roland modular setup. And we're trying to work with him. So this is kind of where the modules are going for. So yeah, I don't know how he got them all, but I guess he probably got a pretty good deal on them. But he's told me that he's used them from everything from like Inception to Chappie, is a lot of System 100M sort of sounds in it. And he's also got 3 System 700s, which is a bigger sort of modular system that Roland created in the 70s as well. So, yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Lyle. Let's
give
Lyle a round of applause.
Yeah.